The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Maynard Bangs presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Bangs.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus Solo, a Star Wars story, a 2018 sci-fi adventure film following the early criminal exploits of a galaxy far, far away's favorite scoundrel, Han Solo. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Your Honor, gentle jurors and members of the court, I would like to tell you a story as my opening statement. A Star Wars story, if you will.
No.
I watched Solo on opening night. Also Solo, as happens to be my lot in life. Anyway, somewhere near the end, there's a scene where Han shoots his mentor, Captain Beckett, who is about to betray him before Beckett has a chance to shoot Han. Immediately, I got the reference. Han shot first. As did most of the audience, as I heard a cadence of echoes in the room. Han shot first, Han shot first, Han shot first. Okay, great. We all got it. Then Han approaches Beckett, and there's a bit of a prolonged scene where they say goodbye, and the mentor congratulates Han for being smart enough to shoot him. And at this point, it was beginning to lose its credibility for me. But this dad sitting next to me just all of a sudden had a light bulb ding, and he nudges his son and goes, "Hey, Han shot first." Yep, that's who this film is for. This film is for you, like Star Wars, but from a distance, Dad. We'll give you all those familiar warm fuzzies from the days of yore and painfully spell it out to everyone along the way. It's slow and painful to watch as we learn the origin of Han's last name. Did we need an origin for his last name? Oh, you're traveling alone. I know. Solo! We'll call you Han Solo! I think most of us were happy just accepting that as a normal last name in this universe. Will Windu, a Star Wars story, show us how Mace Windu had a fascination with medieval weaponry? Thankfully, time will not tell, as this film tanked and subsequent Disney Star Wars projects were scrapped to be reevaluated. So if nothing else, we do owe Solo, a Star Wars story, a debt of gratitude for sucking enough to save us from future subpar drudgery.
Thank you for your heroic gatekeeping there, Mr. Haslar. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Mr. Joe Pontillo. Please present your opening statement.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I come to you today with a space background to defend a movie that takes place in space, although it doesn't overly feel like that sometimes, and I kind of appreciate that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the origin of Han's last name was good. It was maybe terrible, but
thank you. Overall, the prosecution rests.
But there's so much more to the movie than just that. It's a fun, adventure movie that we haven't really seen in Star Wars before, that gives you the backstory to a character. And I wanted to hate it. I did. But I did not. It was good. It was fresh. It was different. I like the overall characters. I find, it's not Rogue One, but I didn't care about anybody in Rogue One because I didn't know those people. This is Han Solo, one of the best characters in Star Wars. It's also a movie that takes you someplace different and sets you up for like 5 other things that we'll never get to see because so many people unjustly hated it. I propose to you that this movie was not bad. It was the victim of terrible marketing, and it was in an impossible spot where it came out right after Avengers Infinity War, right after Deadpool 2, And only about 5 months after the widely hated Last Jedi, another movie I also kind of like, but that's for another episode. So I think it was a movie that people were just ready to hate and hated. And now I'm here to tell you it's time to go back and give it a second chance.
Thank you, Mr. Pontillo. Prosecution, please present your first exhibit.
So 2 seconds into the movie, the film is already screwed up, as we're treated to text that was clearly meant to be a traditional Star Wars scrawl, but instead is sentences that sort of fade in and out. This wishy-washiness is already apparent. I'm sure behind the scenes they were asking, do we do the classic scrawl like these non-Skywalker saga films? And Rogue One went ahead and pulled the trigger to say no. So the whole time the text is playing, all you could think of is how this feels wrong. But then we meet Alden Ehrenreich, who has the unenviable task of playing the iconic character originally done by Harrison Ford. Everyone knew that this task was unenviable. Almost every video game around one of Harrison Ford's characters that you play but is voiced by someone else, there's something just a little off and weird about it. And Alden has to not only sound like Ford, but look like him. So I do feel bad for the guy, but the fact remains that he did not conquer that challenge. And this guy is your main dude. The whole time you can't help but think, this isn't Han. And it's made even more painful when the script has lines, with the exception of "that's why, baby," that I can imagine Han saying from a strict level. But it doesn't sound right from this guy. Further, we have a great performance by Donald Glover as Lando. And while I admit it's risky to admit positive evidence as to the film's merit into this courtroom,
Whose side are you on?
Let me explain. I'd like to put it forth with the caveat that I'm bouncing between good Lando, bad Han. Good Lando, bad Han. And it takes me out of the movie every time these two are together. When I'm watching a movie, I want to be absorbed in the experience. But whenever I'm thinking things like this guy trying to be Han is not passing muster, it weakens the whole experience. And again, Han's our main. We spend most of our time with him. So these are not good thoughts to be having. And on top of that, there's things that take me out of the window takes me out of the moment that he's doing. Like he throws a rock through a sheet of paper to scorch the foul lady Proxima. And I can't help but wonder why this lady picked such a weak place from her one huge weakness as her lair. And I'm also wondering why Chewie is owing Han a life debt, which is a pretty core piece of Star Wars lore. They seem to have thrown that out the window in this film. They have some sort of kind of maybe situations, but it's never quite there. So I guess they're just friends and we're just rewriting everything. I'd like to pass on the character of Han to the
defense. Do you have any rebuttal to the main actor who plays Han or any of the points the prosecution brought up?
He was in a very difficult position, and while I'm not going to sit here and say that he was the strongest part in this movie, I think he did a very good job. And you didn't want somebody who was going to just do a Harrison Ford impression. You wanted somebody who was going to bring their own thing to it. And I think he did that, minus some cheesy parts and a lot of unnecessary smirking, because I feel like that's his default facial feature throughout the movie, no matter what the situation is. But while he's maybe one of the weaker parts in this movie, like everybody else around him is so much better. Like Donald Glover was brought up. Honestly, maybe a way better Lando than Billy D. Williams. The villain is very good, even though Drayden Voss sounds like the name of like every like tech millionaire bad guy in a 90s movie.
It's such a Star Wars name.
Yeah, it's not really. Yeah. Woody Harrelson is great. I don't remember the actress's name, but Kira, she was very good too. So like everywhere you go,
Amelia Franchise Killer Clark is her name.
Yeah, Chewie brought it in that movie. And yes, I do understand your point about them, him giving him this life debt kind of very easily, but also they were both prisoners. And Han, maybe not in the clearest fashion, but he did make Chewie aware that, hey, if we get out of here, this is us together. And Chewie was like, "Grr." And
that situation. I mean, Han owes Chewie more than Chewie owes Han. If anything, it's a tie.
Prosecution, do you have a Chewbacca impression you can rebut with, or? Okay. The whole trial will now continue in Wookiee. Prosecution, present your next exhibit.
Okay, as I mentioned in my opening, do we need or even want an origin story for every aspect of Han's character? Where we got his last name, where he got his blaster, why he parts his hair 2 inches to the side. It's like a conversation we have with every time a new Spider-Man iteration comes out. Do we need an origin story? This film should have started with Han and Chewie just getting roped into the Kessel Run right there. It would have made the film a lot less uneven, as it would have we wouldn't have this forced origin as a first act. So instead of the additional 3-act structure of the heist movie, now we have a fourth, which just kind of makes it flow weirdly. Or even better.
Question from the bench: why wasn't he named Han Lonely Man?
You know, that's a question for the defense.
Han Sad Fellow.
Yeah. Han Dinner for One.
Yeah, we didn't even need any of that, and yet we got it. It's just terrible. But, better than that, we just scrapped this whole plot and we start with Han in the Imperial Navy as a bad dude and have the plot around those events, and maybe saving Chewbacca's part of that. And that would put the trajectory of him being a hero through episodes 4 through 7 as a part of that trajectory, and the experience of watching the whole saga is more rewarding. But no, we don't have it. As we have it now, we have 4 acts, an origin act that sucks, heist planning act that's weird because Jon Favreau's voice doesn't match the CGI character it's coming out of, and further, Han willingly puts himself into the clutches of this big crime syndicate just to move the plot along. If Han and Beckett were smart, they would have had Han step back while Beckett deals with Dryden Voss and then help Beckett out with the coaxium heist. But we gotta move the plot along, and we need some way of getting Han and his paramour together. So people are losing interest over here, so we gotta keep going. The heist itself, maybe a bit more drawn out than it needs to be. It's awkward, and the 4th act is awkward, where everybody betrays everybody. And hearing that come out of my mouth, it kind of sounds cool, but it's not. It would be cool if they lessened the number of characters in the room, but it's getting tiring by its 6th strain. I was really working for myself. Mwahaha. It's almost like that Seinfeld joke about adultery, where the robber turns to the robber next to him and says, okay, and give me all your money too. It really does get to that level of ridiculousness.
Defense, do you have any rebuttal to any of these points?
I think what you're doing unfairly is you're examining this as the one movie that it is, which it is just going to be this one movie. What you're not seeing
just the one movie, yes, guilty one,
which,
sir.
thank God for you, I guess. The plan was clearly, we're probably going to do like a trilogy of solo movies, but once this movie came out, that obviously wasn't going to happen. So they, of course, had to take this first movie and be like, well, we have to give him some kind of origin to show how he comes from, being this like kind of douchey thief guy who just wants to fly fast to, he's sort of noble. I mean, he's still kind of a douche at the end, let's be real. But he's like a noble douche to an extent. So I feel like they spent a lot of time in this movie building this character up and just taking you along his journey.
He's a lot more selfish at the beginning of A New Hope, wouldn't you say?
Right, which we could have found out down the road, like, oh, all right, he went back to being a selfish douche. But when you've witnessed that many betrayals in the course of, what was it, like 5 minutes, I guess you have no choice but to make the right decision at the end. But he is what he is. He's a borderline criminal who has a heart of gold, if that, maybe silver, I don't know. But and I think that showed that, because what's the first thing he does as soon as he has the shootout, not even shootout, where he shoots Bennett. He goes and he cheats Lando at his own game to get his ship back. So that, to me, concluded the character arc and set you up perfectly for a second solo movie, where maybe you would have had to do less of this like origin nonsense, which not everybody was on board with, and I totally understand that.
So your defense is there's going to be a movie that we don't have.
Yes, Solo 2.
So as a whole, you would agree it falls short.
Look who's coming to Chewie's house.
They'll probably fix it in the Star Wars series or something like that. Can you tell me when they had the time to make this lid to the coaxium that like perfectly conceals Han's blaster?
Excuse me. So I choked on water here. That's how good that defense was.
You're eating your own words, yes.
So defense,
Anyway,
when did they have?
I'm a sucker for those like betrayal, this and that, and like just 10 different twists at the end. Like I was kind of all about that. Rewatching it, I was like, this is still fun. The movie gets more fun as it goes on. It starts in this weird dark place. I'll totally give you that the whole Lady Proxima, is she a vampire? I don't understand what a vampire worm. What was that? That was weird.
Why didn't she brick up that window?
I know.
But you have
There's
all
a
these
cave.
people
There are
working for
caves on
you.
Corellia.
Yeah. Let's prioritize.
Exactly. Like these villains just never, think that through. Like, what's something that'll easily defeat me? Okay, let's leave it there.
Well,
Let's
that'll
just
never happen.
I like to live with that threat.
Prosecution, do you have another exhibit?
This may be my strongest point, Your Honor.
About
I
time.
want to talk about Darth Maul. First of all, it's shameful sequel baiting. They're really trying to hammer that Marvel movie mold onto Star Wars with those post-credit stings. It's Thanos, and all the fanboys and gals squee. They don't have the plot figured out, but they know that this guy's in it, so it has to be good, right? No, make a good Han Solo movie first, and then think about your sequel. Second, the reveal is done in a paint-by-numbers fashion where you don't see his face for a bit, but everybody knows anything about the Clone Wars series knows that it's Darth Maul, and that he's running criminal organizations after the Phantom Menace. So they're not really fooling anyone with this, who could it be, who could it be? Third, Darth Maul ignites his freaking lightsaber for no reason whatsoever, almost like we wouldn't recognize him without it. Again, trying to milk that fanboy or gal squee out of the audience.
Don't talk about milking fan gals.
How dare you, Sarah? This is a court of law.
I will yield that, Your Honor. But I'm sitting here wondering why. Why is he igniting his lightsaber on a phone call? It's not like people are busting into this room to attack him or something. It's not like he's so keyed up to go run some crime that he ignites his lightsaber and runs out the door because he turns it off while still on the call. This is pathetic. It's like a YouTube video where guys brandish pistols in their mom's basement and attempt to look cool. But he's a Sith. He doesn't need to intimidate Kira with it. His reputation should precede him. Why did he ignite his lightsaber? It makes no sense. It's unforgivable. I'm not a puppet, Disney. I'm not going to dance and clap whenever you throw a scrap of something you think I'll like when you clearly don't understand the history of what it is you're throwing at me. Was I supposed to skip out of the theater? Darth Maul's going to be in Solo 2. Darth Maul's going to be in Solo 2. And he has his lightsaber. I know because they teased it to me. We Star Wars fans are not your little cash dispensing dogs who bark at your command. And we proved it by giving your precious Solo a Star Wars story, a punishing box office return. Glad you got the message, though, and rethought your plans. If there is another Star Wars film on the horizon, let's hope it's not so damn insulting. The prosecution rests.
Oh, very good.
Jesus, Ben, tell us how you really feel.
Yep. Defense, the prosecution has rested. You may present your first exhibit.
This is like the movie roast battle or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, quick question for the prosecution. I take it you're a big Star Wars fan.
Yes, they have hits and misses, but overall, yes.
He's not that tall.
Oh, I definitely meant height.
I'm 5'11" and a half, dude.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
As a shorter person, let me, I come from this as somebody, I like the Star Wars movies, Mandalorian, all that stuff, but I'm here as somebody who is not a big fan. I'm not obsessed with the movies, so I watch these movies through a different prism than somebody who's, say, obsessed with them. See, I'm obsessed with, like, Batman, so I will nitpick a Batman movie I can try to tell you how The Dark Knight is not even that good of a movie if you give me 5 minutes.
Coming to a Reels of Justice courtroom soon.
Almost certainly.
But we are talking about Star Wars right now, and as somebody who is not a hardcore Star Wars fan, movies like Solo, and for that matter, The Last Jedi, were very enjoyable to me just because they felt like they were something different. They weren't just pushing the same story, like they weren't like the semi-joyless cash grab that was The Force Awakens, which, let's be real, was a New Hope with a bigger freaking Death Star and, slightly different people in spots and no loot. That's basically what that whole movie
Don't forget that sweet-ass stormtrooper,
Force Awakens
though.
is not on trial here.
I'm sorry, what did the judge just say?
Don't forget that sweet-ass stormtrooper that fought Finn, though.
Oh, I love
is
that guy.
the gold one or the red one? I lost track. Oh, but this stormtrooper wears a different colored armor, so they're
more
better
powerful.
trained than all the other stormtroopers. But yeah, Solo was definitely an attempt at creating sort of almost like a different offshoot of Star Wars that we hadn't seen before, where newer and fresher stories could have lived and could have existed, but it just came at the wrong time when nobody was going to give this movie a chance. Fans were already so angry. And even though I enjoyed The Last Jedi, I totally understand fans hating it because I understand fanboys like yourself, sir. So once again, I'm going to say this was a quality movie. Was it the best movie? It was not. But is it worth all the hate that it's received over the years? I'm going to say no. And I hope a jury is listening to this with openness, and perhaps we can finally push through this as a movie community.
Before you rest your case, can you speak a little about some of the other characters we haven't talked about? We haven't talked much about Woody Harrelson. What did you think of his performance?
Woody Harrelson, although he sort of plays himself in every movie, nails the role of himself as a space criminal. In this movie, Woody Harrelson is honestly great. He's one of those people that I've come to groan every time he's in something, but then he does the job. It's sort of like Will Smith. You know, you're like, oh, they put Will Smith in Suicide Squad, and then he ends up being the only good part.
Yeah.
So Woody Harrelson gets the job done. He was believable in that role. He was a perfect person to take Han from where he was to the end. I kind of feel like they could have got away without killing him at the end. Like, could just shoot him in the leg. I don't know. See, unnecessary. But yeah, Woody Harrelson's character was great. The robot that was
L3.
What was going on? I forget the robot L3 with her and Orlando doing it.
Yep, they were.
Yes,
yeah.
they were.
They were robosexuals.
Had issues with and thought she was supposed to be some sort of social warrior type android, but at the end of the day, she's just a fun-loving android who wanted to overthrow the ruling class, and everybody should support that.
Prosecution.
I'll rebuttal to L3 a
Prosecution.
little bit,
You have some robophobia you wanted to share with us?
No, I'm okay with robosexual relationships. That's not at all my problem here. My problem is her whole character is about how she divas the revolution, and that's about it. Like almost every line is like your annoying woke friend who's just always like, ahem, do you realize your shampoo's bad for the environment? Ahem. Did you know the CEO of the cereal supports the NRA? Ahem. You know, like everything. You can't even live your life because this person's always up in your grill. And further, this relationship between her and Lando is seemingly non-consensual because she tells Kira they're not compatible. So is Lando raping this robot? You know, I don't like the questions it's making me ask. It doesn't say it one way or the other, but there's definitely murkiness there. It's not like, you know, robosexuality good.
To the defense of this movie, whether or not Lando is having consensual sex with the android.
She says she's not.
I think they were incompatible for a relationship. Prosecution, not sexually incompatible.
Yes, one night stand, we're fine.
Yeah, she seemed to enjoy it from the conversation that I had. But defense, do you have a non-robosexual point to bring up, or do you like to rest your case?
I would like to hear more robosexual points, please.
Quiet you.
Okay, well, here, Dylan, here's something about robots having sex with people. Oh, sorry, you're speaking.
Okay, both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
Excuse me for a second, Your Honor. I just want to pull out my... Yeah, there we go. Before it was released...
Was that a lightsaber?
Oh, can you not hear it?
I mean...
No, we did. It sounded like a lightsaber.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, you know, I'm just going to have my lightsaber. Sometimes you just have to, you know, ignite it for no reason whatsoever. Before it was released, I was afraid of Solo, a Star Wars story. That fear turned into anger. Upon its release, that anger turned into hate as I watched it, and then that hate turned into suffering as I am forced to cram it into every Star Wars marathon. I encourage the defense to drop the case now. It's over, Joe. I have the high ground. When in that deliberation room for Solo, a Star Wars story, remember it has a fake hand, it has a wonky as hell flow, it has a constant barrage of moments that just take you out of the movie, and it answers questions you didn't want answers to. and answers ones you didn't, like or doesn't answer questions you did want answers to, like what the hell was going on with Dryden Boss's face? And let's face it, it's a shameless cash grab, and it knows it. But there's a way to send a clear message to the folks at Disney to treat this franchise that we love with a bit more respect, and that would be to cast a guilty verdict on this film. This is the way. Help me, jury. You're my only hope.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. And what was going on with his face, of course, was that he was evil. Mr. Pontillo, please present your closing argument.
Just like when the prosecutor turned on his lightsaber, reminding us that he is, in fact, evil. Please consider this.
Oh, yeah.
Much like Darth Maul. I come here today, ladies and gentlemen, and I cannot believe that I'm in a position where I'm defending a Disney movie. But it's one of the few movies they've made that sort of tried to have a soul. And the people said, no, thank you. And it's because we've entered this culture where everybody has an opinion on something. Everybody is angry about something all the time. You can't make a movie, whether it's Star Wars or comic book or, Fast and the Furious is fine. But anything else, people are going to hate, people are going to complain about. Solo was a victim. The movie itself was a victim of so many things: poor planning, poor marketing, bad movies that preceded it, and also just fatigue. You know, the movie community, we're just fatigued with seeing Star Wars at this point. It was a cool idea when they first announced it in, like, whatever it was, 2013. Yeah, we're going to have a Star Wars movie every year until 2037. Until they start actually putting out a movie every year. And then you're like, wow, this was actually a terrible idea. Why was I on board with this at first? But Solo is not the reason why the entire Disney Star Wars franchise is a disaster. Solo more or less was like a symptom of the disaster that got unfairly lumped in with all the other disasters. And it's a movie, it's a fun movie. It's a movie where you laugh, where even though it has serious things going on, it doesn't feel serious. All the other new Star Wars movies, very depressing, very serious. Even when they win, you're like, did they really win? This movie takes you back to a place almost like A New Hope, where it's a new beginning, where you're like, hey, new things are going to happen. I feel good about this character. The prosecution seemingly wanted Han Solo to just be de-aged like it was the Irishman in space. And honestly, that was not going to work for this movie, okay? Was he the best choice? I don't know. Was he the worst choice? Definitely not. Was he the best thing in this movie? Of course not. But overall, the whole of this movie was very high quality. Like I said, it brings you to a new place. It gives you hope about a Star Wars franchise that you haven't felt in a while.
A new hope?
A newish hope.
Okay.
Ah.
And now I've lost my point. But yes. So I asked the jury to examine all of this and look at this movie, not as a part of a whole awful business conglomerate that is Disney, that has kind of ruined Star Wars until they sort of redeemed themselves with The Mandalorian. But look at this as an individual movie through the eyes of someone who isn't a Star Wars fan, who isn't already bitter and angry at every movie that's come before it, and already knowing what they're going to do with Rise of Skywalker, which will also be terrible in capacity. And just look at this as a movie on its own. And I hope that you will give it a non-guilty ruling. Thank you. JoePontillo.com.
I love it.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Rob Maynard, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. Who's Scruffy Looking, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
By now, I find your ability to not find the deliberation room disturbing.
All right. So what are we thinking, guys? Dylan?
Well, I know you guys, that is to say Ryan and Rob, you guys are big Star Wars fans, bigger than
medium.
know.
You read the books, you nerd.
Yeah, I did read the Thrawn trilogy. I did play the Shadows of the Empire video game.
I've never even heard of those things.
I've got some. I do have some nerd cred. That
have you ever played the card game?
No, never played.
I have.
Game.
Nerd.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm not a nerd. Of course I am.
Yeah, we're nerds. That's fine. But I'm just saying, I've never had a supreme fealty to Star Wars the way some people do. And I appreciate those feelings that people do have. So when Joe was talking about trying to view it, you know, a little more objectively, like divorcing some of the fanishness away from it, you know, I think that's a fair way to look at it. But when you do that, the movie still has all the problems Ben was mentioning, though. It still has a lot of bad acting. It still has some weird pacing issues. You know, so if you divorce too much of your Star Wars knowledge from it, then a lot of it just kind of doesn't make sense, and it seems very silly, too. So yeah. I'm definitely leaning against it right now, though I do like, I thought Joe made a very good case for it. I like the passion behind it. You know, he really believes it. The check must have cleared.
The check did clear.
I think it's interesting that the fact that this is actually two movies Frankenstein together was never brought up during the arguments, because that's point. That's the biggest problem I have with this movie, is that it started out with two directors. They were fired. Their scenes were mostly reshot. So it's unclear how much input they actually had on the finished film, but I think that you can feel it throughout. It doesn't feel like a product of one master. It feels like a product of three, which is what it is.
And you got Ron Howard is so good, and this feels like such a mercenary job for Ron Howard. It has none of the soul that he normally, or his flourishes that he normally brings, except for his brother.
He's very white bread.
I was going to say, if there's a real strength to this, is that it brought Clint Howard to the Star Wars universe. Which it was
Ron
always
Howard directed
missing.
Cocoon. Come on.
Which I guess, I mean, if that's what you think needs to be in a Star Wars movie, sure, why not? But
I think Clint Howard should be
would
in
have been
movie.
interesting. Would have been interesting.
It's very conventional, and that's the problem, because the movie actually, first of all, the movie looks amazing.
Yeah,
it's shot by a real cinematographer, Bradford Young. And I think it's possibly the best looking Star Wars movie since, I don't know, maybe Empire.
Oh, I like Rogue One more. But...
I'm saying Rogue One's a better movie, but this looks better than Rogue One does.
I thought this looked better, but okay, go on.
But anyway, other than that, the biggest problem that I have with this is the same problem that I have with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where basically everything about Indiana Jones happens over the course of one afternoon. Like literally every single thing about his personality, the fact that he doesn't like snakes, the fact that he has a scar on his chin,
the fact that he met Hitler and got his autograph.
Yeah, exactly. All of that happens within the span of 3 hours. And here, everything that I kind of didn't want to know about Han Solo, especially how he met Chewbacca, I already know how he met Lando, because that's part of the canon. I know that he won the Millennium Falcon. I don't need to see him win it, meet Chewie, and meet Lando all in the span of what, like 8 hours?
Yeah.
Come on, pace yourselves better, or just do a standalone story that is just, I don't need to know how Han became Han Solo. I just want to see him be Han Solo.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Ryan, because it begs the question. Well, I mean, it doesn't technically beg the question, but anyway, it does raise the question of what was he doing for 3 years? Like, he was just stuck as an Imperial trooper, and like he didn't change at all. Like, it had no effect on him. You know what I mean? It was just the only noticeable difference was that it said 3 years later on the screen. You know, other than that, he was exactly.
He was probably doing war crimes.
Yeah, almost certainly.
I mean, we would hope, right?
Yeah, that's just
cool.
That's just the thing, though. It's like how did he survive so long as a grunt? What kind of missions did he go on? What kind of training did he have? Why could he speak to Wookiees? You know, those are interesting things. You know?
Yeah, you'd never seen him speak Wookiee before that, and they just do it in the one scene when they kind of meet to establish that's how he does it, and then the rest of the time they're back and forth as it always is. I got to say that to me the biggest weakness of this movie is that main character, is the guy who plays Han Solo. And I think there were choices, casting choices they could have made that were a lot better than this dude. And they just picked him because he looked like Han Solo, but he's pretty much terrible. And he's got a great smirk, but he doesn't ever really feel like, he just feels like a Han Solo cosplayer the whole time. And also,
who could have possibly actually done
Chris Pratt? I keep saying Chris Pratt. I know he's already Star-Lord.
No.
I know he's already Star-Lord, but he would have killed it.
Here's the thing, too. I don't think any of the I don't think any of the Star Wars characters are so sacrosanct that a new actor can't put their own twist on them.
Yeah,
it was like Heath Ledger doing the Joker versus Jack Nicholson doing the Joker versus Cesar Romero doing the Joker. These are all very different people.
Getting dangerously close to reducto ad legerum.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. That let someone like Donald Glover is a much better actor. He's much funnier than he got to be in this movie. And I thought he was good in this, but he could have done his own thing with Lando. That would have been great. Probably would have been better than Billy D. Williams.
And that rounds out my point is, it was mentioned that Donald Glover did a pretty good job, and I didn't think he did. And I think the problem is that he isn't able to create his own character. He's forced to do an impression, basically, of Billy D. Williams. He's forced to play someone else's character in their style, and that stifles him. So maybe this dude who played Han Solo is a good actor. Probably not, but maybe he is, because if Donald Glover could do such a crappy job under these sort of conditions, maybe he did too.
Hear me out here.
Sure.
Donald Glover plays Han.
I love it.
Yeah, why not? That's what I'm saying. None of these characters are so holy and sacred that you can't mix it up. That there will be in our lifetime a different someone who's not Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker.
It's already happened.
The theaters. Yeah, this is gonna happen in our lifetime. Why not start now? But that's not what they wanted to do. It was just so many poor decisions. I'll make this easy. I'm going guilty on this one. I did appreciate Joe's passion, though, but I gotta go guilty. The facts are the facts, and it's just bad as Star Wars, bad as sci-fi, bad as action, bad as comedy. You name it, it's bad at it. It's guilty.
Rob.
I didn't think first off, I love your Donald Glover idea as Solo. I would love that. But only if Werner Herzog is Chewbacca. Then I'd be really interested. While I hate everything that we mentioned. They're I hate when he gets his name in the little Ellis Island. Hated that. I hate when he's thrown in the pit and they're the beast is down there and it's Chewbacca and then it's fucking Chewbacca. But overall, in general, I like the plot where it's actually pretty simple. It's he meets a gang. They need to steal a certain substance. They fail. They owe the student tremendous debt. They need to go on another heist to pay him back. And then they decide to screw him over. I like the space heist thing. And I was willing to forgive this movie because I wanted to see where they would possibly go. And I'm always down to see more Emilia Clarke. So I'm going to go not guilty.
Great. Guilty.
You want to elaborate why, Ryan?
No,
I think
Ryan,
I already
I
have.
You have to. No, that was
right.
It was a good case. This is the kind of movie that deserves a hearing, but it also deserves to be found guilty.
All right. Well, we should get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
I don't see him here. Hold on.
Very handsome.
Are there other judges?
Nope, he's the handsomest.
Are you sure? Yeah,
yes.
He's absolutely sure.
Most handsome.
Well,
wait, guys.
So.
What if we cast Donald Glover as the judge?
Ooh.
Whoa.
Okay.
Only if Werner Herzog plays Rob.
Yes! I love it.
We are all fragile beings in the cosmos that is a whirlwind of patheticness. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Solo, a Star Wars story, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie. Yay!
The verdict is so rendered. I hereby order that Solo, a Star Wars story, be terminated immediately. It will therefore be taken to the Dune Sea and cast into the pit of Carcoon, the nesting place of the all-powerful Sarlacc. In his belly, the film will find a new definition of pain and suffering as it is slowly digested over 1,000 years. Court is adjourned.
Wow, I feel a little bad now. I didn't hate the movie that much.
I don't know how I'm going to tell the family.
Yoda, this is from Gabagoo Gazette.
Wait, you can't say Yoda. We don't own the rights to
Oh,
it.
you're right. Okay. So here we go.
Say your yogurt.
Yogurt.
I don't think we own the rights to him either.
Soda?
Foda. No, let's go like Foda, I guess. Foda, I am. From the Gabagoo Gazette it is. Big Ben, case you won. Feelings?
Well, in the immortal words of Qui-Gon Jinn, there's always a bigger fish, and so I am setting my sights upon the rise of Skywalker.
Oh. Mr. Pontillo.
I'm sorry. Did you say you're from Gabagool? Is that an Italian?
Gabagool Gazette. It's our paper of record for the
part of the Dagobah system.
Yeah, it's an Italian stereotype publication.
Might want to check that.
Mr. Pontillo.
Listen, I knew it.
Lean down, please. I'm Yoda. I'm small.
No, you're not. You're not Yoda.
Oh, it's true. I'm
Say you're not Yoda now.
I'm Foda.
You get sued. I am available to represent you. Well, listen, I knew what today was going to be. I knew I was going in. The deck was stacked against me. The jury was filled with anti-Star Wars people, and I just, I put out all that I could, and I hope that Disney hears this and hires me to write Solo too. Or no, not them. Never mind. I hope nobody hears this.
You did call them an evil corporation several times.
Many times.
Yeah, we like his boxing.
But we'll go get him next time.
That's true. Yep.
Good, very. Foda is my name.
He doesn't talk that backwards.
Quiet
every word.
This is original creation. This is
intellectually distinct.
Justice of reels.
Intellectually distinct.
The studio we go for post-trial analysis will have.
Just do your Scooby laugh.
Can we
Joe,
re-record the entire episode with everybody
my digital
like
hand
that?
and say, oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, God.
No, Ryan. We will not be.
Next time I want to be Sylvester Stallone. I'm putting my foot down.
Next time, sure. I don't know why you'd be him now.
I could be interviewed by both.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, Joe Pontillo.
At least you have a lot of time to work on it.
Yours is close to Yoda as Alden Ehrenreich was to Harrison Ford. So.
I want to change my vote.
Anyway, it was a fun trial.
I appreciate your spirit.
I disliked this movie more the next, like last time I was more forgiving to it, and then this time when I watched it with a more critical eye, I was like, God damn it.
I appreciate that I don't have to watch it a third time.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you hear Space Train Heist. How can they mess that up?
Wait, the Space Train Heist I didn't have a problem with. I liked the Space Train Heist.
It was a solid Space Train Heist. One of the best, honestly.
Yeah, I can't think of a better Space Train Heist. It's the best one.
I challenge someone to do a better Space Train Heist. In real life.
You got me there. We got to find
one.
So, Joe, what has been keeping you busy? What have you been up to lately?
What has been nightmares mostly, and
you're part of other people.
Right side of movie podcast. Been doing lots of live comedy again, which is sort of nice. Speaking of things that should be put on trial, and I just whenever I can, I like to put out a video or something. Sketch wise, I have multiple little recurring series that I do. And
where can people watch those?
You can go subscribe to my YouTube or follow me on Instagram at Pontillogram, where you'll see all of the most recent Joe Pontillo video posts.
Oh, nice.
Oh, and TikTok. Ugh.
Oh, TikTok. You love it. You probably are you big with the K-pop kids?
Working on that. Yeah. I'm trying to plan my South Korea tour for 2022.
I think you should go to North. Right up.
Oh yeah, no one's going to North, man.
No one's going to North Korea. It's an untapped market.
They love the K-pop in the DMZ.
Somebody needs to open that door, and once it's open, boom.
Yeah.
The only way we can heal.
Yeah, exactly. Dennis Rodman really pulled the ladder up behind him.
He did work.
Pretty great. And you said you're doing live shows. Where have you been? New York mostly still.
Yeah, mostly around New York. I occasionally run a show at Broadway Comedy Club. Don't have another one till July, but I'm assuming this won't drop before then.
I think it might be around there. I'll check the schedule. Maybe we can make it.
I know an episode we can push.
Well, no. No, pretty great. When we were in all these unprecedented times, were you doing those Zoom shows? Were you doing the Zoom stand-ups?
I did a lot. I started with Instagram live shows in case Zoom
Classier.
wasn't bad enough. And moved on to Zoom. Zoom honestly was fine. I don't know. I still do the occasional Zoom show. It's kind of good to be like, hey, I'm just going to go into another room and yell at my phone for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I call it Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing stand-up with no pants on that's got to have its
I just
perks.
want to say I wore pants virtually every time. Maybe twice I wore shorts.
Yeah,
There you go. Virtual pants. So we always ask for a recommendation of a movie that you think our listeners should check out. So what is a movie you think that people should see?
Very random movie. I don't know how many people saw it. Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Yep, good movie.
Very fun and just completely kind of off the wall, but in a not ruins the movie kind of way. I watched it once, I loved it, and then I made a group of people watch it, and they didn't like it as much.
Oh.
So I was very hurt by that.
They're probably
when
wrong.
you're holding a gun to their head, they tend to react a little negatively.
Elementary kids are like
that. A little bit
that.
of a hostage situation.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you're looking for something free and random, go and have Amazon Prime. There's a movie very simple called Friends and Romans. It's a bunch of Italian guys in Staten Island that decide to put on a Shakespeare play. It stars, yes, it stars a bunch of people from The Sopranos.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, so you have to, it's terrible, but it's like the fun kind of terrible.
Awesome.
Yo, to sleep, perchance to dream.
Romeo, where art thou, Romeo?
What light through that motherfucking window breaks.
Forget about it.
Yeah, if you could put curses into iambic pentameter, that would be great. Big Ben, you were the opposing counsel today. What recommendation do you got for us?
This movie is kind of divided in the Star Wars fandom, but I really liked Rogue One. I think
not divided at all.
It is. No, I like almost every time I hear people like 50-50 on it.
What? Fuck them.
They either love it or they hate it. It's never it's not divided in that I feel conflicted. You're either on one side or the
chance
other.
It's the best one.
I don't know about
waste
that.
mads.
It has exactly two flaws in it. It has a slow first act and it has a CGI Tarkin. Other than that, it's great. It doesn't feel as much of a product. The way that they put this team together feels like a very somewhat original story to this universe, and it looks like Star Wars. So as far as Star Wars stories go, that is the one you should absolutely watch.
My complaint is the CGI actors, absolutely,
Mhm.
and criminal underuse of Donnie Yen.
Yeah, I mean, he's good, but I'd like to see more with him.
Let's see. Well, I am the judge, so I suppose that I can go next. And since we're chatting sci-fi adventure, my recommendation is a superbly fun one I saw recently, Beyond Skyline from 2017.
Yes.
Earth finds itself the target of an alien invasion, with the intent being to utilize the brains of abductees to power hulking biomechanical mech suits that lay siege to the planet. A pretty good plan, huh? Unfortunately, there is one thing the extraterrestrial menace didn't count on, and that's motherfucking Frank Grillo.
Yeah.
The film.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the film eventually devolves into like a super sweet martial arts flick featuring Yayan Ruhian of The Raid fame. And Beyond Skyline is a sequel to 2010's Skyline, and the action of the two films take place concurrently, but it's a lot better than the predecessor. So skip the first one, just go right to the sequel. It is currently streaming on the Netflix. Pretty cool.
Awesome.
Ryan, what have you got for us?
My recommendation this week is not a movie, but a television series.
Boo!
It's a series of shorts that translates the prequel era of Star Wars best. Genndy Tartakovsky's series of shorts entitled Star Wars Clone Wars. If you wanted to see what the salad days for our favorite Millennium Falcon adjacent characters looked and felt like with an actual visionary behind the helm, look no further. Both seasons of Clone Wars, not the Clone Wars, just Clone Wars, are now streaming on Disney+.
Disney.
Yeah, you'll know you're watching it because it's the one that's excellent. If you're watching the one that sucks, you'll know to switch.
Yeah, one is hand drawn, one is computer animated, one is great, the other one blows.
I'll take that.
Just update the titles to the bad one and the good one.
They really should. Save everyone enough time.
Schlenzo, send us on home.
All right. Well, I am also going to recommend a sci-fi movie that I've been thinking about lately called Pandorum. It came out in 2009, starring Dennis Quaid. It's basically a generational spaceship that is off course or lost or something. Our heroes don't know. They wake up from their hypersleep confused, and get this, there's like space zombies on the ship trying to attack them and kill them. It's pretty neat. And I was looking it up to recommend, and apparently it's incredibly poorly reviewed. I was surprised because I enjoyed it. There's the ending is actually, I thought, pretty clever. You might see it coming, you might not. So there you go.
I'm not surprised because you love crap.
I like stuff that's crap adjacent, like hackers and slightly better than hackers.
No,
this is slightly better than a hacker, I would say. So you cannot punch your hacker card on this one.
It's a hacker plus. Okay.
Hacker plus.
Oh, pretty cool. And with that, we're all out of show for the week. But we want to thank our guest, Joe Pontillo, for joining us. Thank you so much, Joe.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I regret all of this.
Us too.
I'm happy to report you've been unbanned from the court now. So
yeah.
Congratulations. And you'll be back on the show very soon, we hope. And we hope everyone else will join us again soon as well, as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Star Wars.
JoePontillo.com.
JoePontillo.com.
Pontillo.com.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.